My name is Terry BERGDALL, and I was a part of the ICA staff for many years, directly for 20 years, from 1969 when I was a university student until 1989 when my wife and I worked ourselves out of a job. And that is that we enabled ICA Kenya, we were in Kenya at the time, to become a Kenyan governed, Kenyan managed, Kenyan run organization. And therefore those of us who had been international staff needed to find a way of getting out of the way so that that could happen. And then I spent 20 years working in a way of trying to I would say put into practice things that I'd learned at ICA and the like, and then most recently I came back and I spent, after 20 years, 1989 to 2009, in 2009 I came back and was the executive director of ICA in the United States, and I was that for 6 years. Now the story I want to tell is early on, and it's about work in Japan. My wife and I were assigned to be the project directors, co-directors. We had a really powerful team of international folks. But we were to be the project staff for the Oyubari project in Hokkaido in northern Japan. And we had a lot of difficulty in setting up that consult. There wasn't a lot of interest in Japan in having international people deal with areas that the people in Japan tend to think were problematic areas and challenging areas, and they just soon keep that kind of hidden. And therefore international folks were not really welcome to that conversation, is the way I would have characterized it at the time. But through some contacts, particularly Adam Gudalewski, who was the Catholic priest in a small area of Hokkaido in a municipality called Oyubari, he set the stage for the municipal government people to invite us in to come and do work. And the way that happened was primarily because this was a very desperate community. It was a coal mining town. At one time the municipality had 100,000 people living in it, but the coal mines were closing as we were doing this work. And I should put it in a historical context. This was in 1977, so it was 40 years ago. Here we are in 2017, so 40 years ago. But the municipality was experiencing real problems, closing down the coal mines, and therefore there was a desperation of trying to find alternatives. What could we do when everything we've depended upon in terms of our livelihoods are disappearing? So they were very receptive to the idea of trying to find a way forward. And therefore in June, and I just looked up the dates, we did what we called a consult, a planning event that involved people from the municipality, people from the village of Oyubari, which was a small segment of the wider municipality. And August 17th through the 23rd, we did this planning consult. Now the planning consult really meant creating teams. And there was one on economic development that looked at businesses, commerce, agriculture, all kinds of ways of generating economic activity within the community. There was also social development, dealing with issues like health, education, and different kinds of things. And these teams all worked during the week. They created a plan. And in doing that, like I say, there was tremendous interest. And we probably had 200 people come to the planning events and participating in those teams and the like. Now, at the end of that week, the task was for the ICA team, our team, to write up the project document. Well, what had been decided? What was the vision of the community? Where did they want to go? What were the obstacles they were encountering? What kind of proposals might they come up with? And then finally, what are the detailed plans of action to implement things? So we spent a whole week writing this up, and while we did, and it was largely done by ICA, and when we finished the week, then we went back to see people and share with them the document write-up and the like, and to begin talking about, well, how could we implement this? Now, one of the groups we went to go see was a group of farmers right on the outskirts of the Oyubari town. And the lead farmer was a man named Mr. Kobayashi. And at the we went to go see him, and we went to his farm, and as soon as he saw us come, he called his neighboring farmers to come and be there. And then with great pride, they took us around into, and this is about 5 hectares, his farm. But he took us around a little bend, and here was a brand new greenhouse. And it was a joint project by these 5 farmers, his neighboring farmers. And it was a greenhouse to grow seedlings for Oyubari melon. Now these are like cantaloupes. But it was one of their ideas on what they might do to grow their agricultural businesses. And these seedlings is Oyubari melons, as they called them. Anyway, this was a dramatic step forward. Well, we were overwhelmed. We were terribly excited, and clearly they were excited, because here was this new greenhouse. And this led toward really an expansion, a dramatic expansion in Oyubari melons, which were then sold all across Japan. And it coincides with Japanese culture. When you go and visit somebody, you take them a gift. These Oyubari melons became very, very popular gifts that people would take and give away. Now, anyway, we were very excited about this, and we thought this was a tremendous example of what happens when you get people together to plan and to do something together and to talk to themselves and the like about doing talking about what they can do to improve their situation. And because we were very excited about this, when we came time at the end of the first quarter of our work there, we wrote up different accomplishments that had happened in the village, and we included a photograph and a little story about Mr. Kobayashi and his greenhouse. Well, and then we sent it off to different people around the world and to Chicago and that kind of thing. Well, about a week later after we did this, Mr. Kobayashi came by our offices, and he saw this story. Now, he couldn't read English. We'd written it in English, but he could see the story, and he started to ask very aggressive questions to us. And all of a sudden, we discovered he was extremely angry. He was upset with us. And what's going on? Why are you upset? We're publicizing, this great success in the village. And his perception of this was, that was our greenhouse. That had nothing to do with ICA. And yet now you're claiming responsibility for it. You're trying to take credit for it. And probably in all likelihood, you're trying to raise money off of what we did. And we said, no, that you totally misunderstand what we were about. And that we were just trying to highlight the power of what local people can do on their own. And we pointed out, and as he had said, for years and years we talked about doing a greenhouse. But, we never got around to doing it. But then when they did a big planning consult and people talked about things and the excitement and encouragement that occurred in that planning consult, like that, they decided to do it. And in my mind, it became like a catalyst. But in his mind, this was our work. This is what we did. It had nothing to do with you. Now, I like to say we did the human development projects because we wanted to learn about how you enable people in the grassroots level to take responsibility for development. And then secondarily, I want to say we wanted to learn about how people from the outside might come in and play a catalytic role, an enabling role to enable this to occur. And I like to say that that experience, Mr. Kobayashi's greenhouse, was my first great learning about what it means to play the role of an outsider enabling local people to take responsibility and become agents of their own development. And part of that very hard learning is you have to be extremely sensitive on how you tell the story and how it's perceived by different people. And therefore, very practically, before writing a story like this, clearly he should have been involved in writing that story. He should have been clear, who is that story going to and why is it being told? And like I say, the big conclusion for me is just it's a very complicated process to play this enabler role, the facilitating role, the catalytic role of an outsider of enabling local action.